Scene script. Have you ever wondered what the new windfall tax policy in India is all about? Well, it's a fascinating story that began in July of 2023 when India introduced a windfall tax for crude oil. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, let's understand what a windfall tax is. Imagine a sector of the economy that's enjoying a sudden and unexpected increase in profits, perhaps due to a surge in global commodity prices. A windfall tax is a levy imposed by the government on these unexpected profits, a way of ensuring that the benefits of good fortune are shared more widely. It's like the government saying, "Hey, you've had a good run, let's share some of that with the rest of us." Now, let's bring the focus back to India. A global heavyweight in the oil industry, India decided to shake things up with a significant change in its windfall tax policy. Introduced for crude oil in July of 2023, the rates of this tax dance to the rhythm of bi-weekly average oil prices. So, when oil prices surge, the tax rate rises, and when prices fall, the tax rate drops. But hold on to your hats, folks, because as of January 3rd, 2024, things are changing once again. The Indian government has decided to overhaul its windfall tax policy for crude oil and petroleum products. This move is set to have far-reaching impacts on the oil industry and the broader economy, and we'll be taking a deep dive into those in the coming scenes. So, with that, we've laid the foundation of our understanding of the windfall tax. We've looked at what it is, why it was introduced in India for crude oil, and how it has evolved until now. But there's so much more to this story. Now that we've understood what the windfall tax is, let's delve into the reasons behind the changes. It's a tale of economics, strategy, and the quest for a more resilient and sustainable future. Stay tuned as we unpack the impacts of India's new windfall tax policy. So what prompted India to adjust its windfall tax policy? Well, there are two main drivers behind this significant shift. Firstly, the government is aiming to ease the burden on consumers. Over the past few years, the common folk have been grappling with soaring diesel and aviation turbine fuel, or ATF, prices. This financial strain has led to widespread discomfort, sparking demand for some form of relief. By eliminating the windfall tax on diesel and ATF, the government is essentially promising a drop in prices. We're talking about a decrease of around 1.5 rupees per litre for diesel and about 4.5 rupees per litre for ATF. Secondly, the change is designed to stimulate domestic production. India is a massive consumer of oil, and much of this demand is met through imports. By increasing the windfall tax on crude oil, the government is hoping to coax domestic producers like ONGC and Oil India into expanding their output and investing more in exploration. This strategy could help reduce India's reliance on imports and invigorate the domestic oil industry. Now, let's take a closer look at the expected impacts on diesel, ATF, and crude oil. For diesel and ATF, the removal of the windfall tax should, in theory, lead to lower prices for consumers. This could be a welcome relief for many, particularly in the transport and aviation sectors. On the other hand, the hike in crude oil's windfall tax could be a double-edged sword for domestic producers. On one side, it might trim their profits and cash flow, making their operations more challenging. But on the flip side, the global crude oil price surge could offset the impact of the tax increase, potentially leading to fatter wallets for these producers. As we can see, the reasons for the change are multifold. But what does this mean for different stakeholders? Well, that's a discussion for our next scene. So, stay tuned as we delve deeper into the ripple effects of India's new windfall tax policy. With the new policy in place, who stands to gain and who might lose? Let's delve into the potential impacts on the key stakeholders. First up, the government. With the windfall tax on diesel and aviation turbine fuel, ATF, taking a bow, the government waves goodbye to an estimated 13,000 crore and 8,000 crore in the current fiscal year. But it's not all doom and gloom. An increase in crude oil's windfall tax is predicted to replenish the treasury with 18,000 crore next fiscal year. Now, on to domestic oil producers. They might have to tighten their belts as the heavier tax load could trim their profits and cash flow. But every cloud has a silver lining. The surge in global crude oil prices could fatten their wallets and offset the impact of the tax hike. Refiners and exporters of petrol, diesel and ATF, companies like Reliance Industries and Nayara Energy, are likely to be popping the champagne as the removal of the windfall tax signals enhanced competitiveness and profitability. However, they'll need to stay nimble to navigate the choppy waters of the ever-shifting global oil market. Turning our attention to consumers, particularly in the transport and aviation sectors, they'll be breathing a sigh of relief with the drop in diesel and ATF prices. This could lead to lower operating costs and more disposable income. But let's not forget the potential inflationary pressures from other rising commodity prices that could rain on their parade. Last but not least, the broader economy. Lower diesel and ATF prices could fuel consumption and investment demand, aiding a post-pandemic recovery. However, the higher windfall tax on crude oil could bring its own set of challenges, inflating the subsidy burden and import bill. The ripple effects of the new policy are far-reaching, but how do we sum it up? In essence, India's new windfall tax policy is a complex balancing act with potential winners and losers in various sectors. As we move forward, the government will need to keep a keen eye on the market, making adjustments along the way to ensure the benefits outweigh the drawbacks. In a nutshell, India's new windfall tax policy is a strategic move with both positive and negative impacts. It's a delicate balancing act that seeks to bring relief to consumers, stimulate domestic production, and maintain fiscal stability. Let's revisit the key points we've explored in this journey. The windfall tax, a levy imposed on sectors enjoying unexpected profits, has undergone a significant revamp in India. The changes, effective from January 3, 2024, mark a pivotal moment in the country's oil sector. The reasons behind this shift are twofold. Firstly, to alleviate the burden on everyday people struggling with diesel and aviation turbine fuel prices. And secondly, to invigorate domestic production, reduce dependency on imports, and give a shot in the arm to the oil industry. The new policy sees the windfall tax bow out for diesel and aviation turbine fuel, offering consumers a price drop per litre. On the flip side, the tax on crude oil gets a bump, encouraging domestic producers to increase their output and invest more in exploration. The ripple effects of this policy are set to be far-reaching. The government will lose windfall tax revenue on diesel and aviation turbine fuel, but the increased tax on crude oil should offset this loss in the next fiscal year. Domestic oil producers will face a heavier tax load, but could also benefit from a global crude oil price surge. Refiners and exporters of petrol, diesel, and aviation turbine fuel are set to gain from the removal of the windfall tax, although they'll also face challenges from the ever-fluctuating global oil market. Consumers, particularly in the transport and aviation sectors, can look forward to reduced fuel prices, which could boost disposable income. However, inflationary pressures from other rising commodity prices might rain on this parade. The broader economy stands to benefit from lower diesel and aviation turbine fuel prices, potentially fueling consumption and investment demand for a post-pandemic recovery. As the oil sector and the economy adjust to the new rhythm, the government must be ready to fine-tune the steps as needed. This dance is far from over, and the music of the global oil market is ever-changing.